Hi, my name is Maddie and today we'll be making this ribbed striped sweater in really cute pastel colors. We will only be using one type of stitch for the entire sweater, so if this is your first time crocheting, then I think it's a really good first time project. And just remember to like and subscribe if you liked the video. That would make me really happy. Okay, let's move on. For this project, we're going to need one 7mm crochet hook, but then we also need one 5mm crochet hook. And then we need some yarn, obviously. I decided to use this pastel mix of colors. It's very thin and lacy yarn. It's a mix of mohair, nylon, and acrylic. Then I decided to not use them by themselves since they're so thin, and I wanted a more muted look, so I decided to use them together with this white acrylic yarn. It's 100% acrylic and it's a weight 3 yarn. I went through about 7 of these, and then for the colors I used about 1 ball of each color. If you have a bigger size than a small medium, I would suggest getting a bit more. Then you of course need some needles, that is just to sew in the loose threads at the end, and of course a pair of scissors. So before we begin, I just want to go through the measurements of the sweater, just so you know what kind of sizing you should be making. So the width or the length of the ribbing at the bottom, it ended up being around 45 centimeters. Now I measured this after I sewed it together, so yeah, probably add 1 centimeter, ending up at 46 centimeters. And then the height of the sweater was 47 centimeter. What I would do is I would find a sweater you have at home, and then you take the measurements of that sweater and then use those measurements. Then you know exactly what sizing you're gonna get. I think mine ended up being around a small, closer to a medium maybe. And then if you have a look at the neckline, mine is quite narrow, but you can definitely make it wider if you want to. Just when you sew those two pieces together, don't go as far in as I did. When it comes to the yarn, for all the ribbings I only used the white yarn, and then for the rest I just added this other yarn to it using both at the same time. You can definitely skip that step and then just use one yarn and then just switch out the colors of that yarn instead. That is totally up to you. When it comes to the stripes, I decided to have 7 stripes at the front. So since my ribbing was 70 rows, I took 70 divided by 7, making each stripe 10 rows. So whatever amount of stripes you want, just take the amount of rows you have for your ribbing and then divide it by the amount of stripes you want. And then you find out how many rows for each stripe. So moving on to making the actual sweater, you want to grab your 5mm crochet hook. That's the one we're going to use for all the parts of the sweater where we're only using the white yarn, so all the ribbings basically. And we're going to make a slip knot. And people do this a bit differently. This is just the way I do it. I just make a loop and then pull the yarn through, and then insert the hook and then tighten it. So we're going to start by making a chain. You grab the yarn by going under it. So you just go under, grab it, and then pull it through the loop. You grab the yarn and then you just pull it through the loop. I did 10 of these, 10 stitches for my chain. That is going to be the height of the ribbing. So if you want it to be a more defined ribbing, having it bigger, then just add a few more, or you can make it smaller as well. But I did 10, which was about 4 centimeters. Once that is done, you want to go into the second stitch from the hook, so not the first one, not this one, but the second one, and you just insert your hook and then you grab the yarn and you just pull it through, and then you grab the yarn once more and you just pull it through both of those loops. So you go into the stitch, you just grab the yarn, and then you grab the yarn once more and you pull it through both of those loops. So that is just normal single crochets, and you're just going to do that down the whole chain until you reach the other side. So just keep going into every single stitch and grab the yarn and pull it through, and grab the yarn and pull it through both loops again. We are almost at the end. Just one more. And then you should have something that looks like this. And then we are of course going to chain one. So you just grab the yarn and pull it through the loop, and then we turn the work around. Now we're going to do almost the same. The only difference is that we're only going to work into the back loop. So if you hold the work a bit towards you, you'll see these small V's at the top, and usually we go underneath both of those when doing a single crochet, but now we're only going to go through the back loop. So you don't go into that first one, but you go into that second one and you work only into the back loop, and then you grab the yarn, you pull it through, and then you grab the yarn again and pull it through both of those loops on your hook. Go into the next back loop, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn, and pull it through again. So as you can see, it is exactly like what we did before, working a single crochet, but we are only working into the back loop, and that is the stitch we're going to do for the whole sweater. So if you get this down, then you won't have any problems making the rest of the sweater. So it is quite easy once you get into it. If you're new to this, then it might take a bit more time in the beginning, but once you get going, it's gonna go by so fast. So just work all the way to the other side, and when you get to the other side, remember to find that last stitch, which can be a bit difficult to see sometimes. And we're of course gonna do chain one before we turn the work around, and that is it. I did a total of 70 rows, that is including the beginning chain and the first row of single crochets. So this is the fourth one that we're doing now, and yeah, I did 70. I think that's between a small and a medium, but as I mentioned earlier, find a sweater you have at home and then take the measurements and just make this the same size. So when that is done, I will see you back here. Okay, so I have all of my 70 rows all done. So the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to switch to your 7mm hook. And then we're going to add the color. So you do that by just grabbing the yarn, and then you sort of just hold it behind the loop that you have on your hook, a bit long, so I'm just gonna tighten it a bit. Yeah, so you're not tying it in, you're just sort of holding it behind your hook, and then you're gonna grab both of those yarn and you're gonna chain one, and then grab the yarn and chain one more, and then grab the yarn and chain one more. So as you can see, we are now creating a long chain, and this chain is gonna go all the way from the bottom of the sweater and up to your shoulder. So I did a total of 55 stitches. the sweater, I wouldn't call it like a cropped sweater. It's not that short, but it is definitely not super long. So you can add more than 55 chains if you want it longer. So once you have the amount of chains that you want, we're going to work down that chain again. So we go into that first loop, grab the yarn, pull it through, and then grab the yarn and pull it through both loops again. So you go into the next one, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn, and pull it through. So this is exactly what we did for like the beginning of the ribbing at the bottom. So you're just going to do single crochets all the way down. No fuss, just a simple single crochet all the way down the chain. And here you can see that I have gone all the way down, and I ran out of white yarn, so I had to just grab a new one. But yeah, so what you want to do is that we need to sort of attach that to the ribbing that we have already created. So what we want to do is that you want to find that first hole or opening, if that's what you want to call it, and then you go into that, and then you grab the yarn, and then you pull that through the loop as well. So that is a slip stitch. And then you find the next hole as well. You go into that, you grab the yarn, and then you just pull it through the loop. And as you can see, it is now sort of attached to the ribbing, and we're going to turn the work, and we're going to start working up the chain again. So just remember that we did 2 slip stitches, so we don't want to work into any of those. I'm just going to take out my hook and try and show you. So that is the 2 slip stitches, and then that is the beginning of the chain. So that is the one we want to work into. So you find that it's going to be the 3rd stitch from the hook, and you find that stitch and you go into it, and then you grab the yarn, pull it through, and then you grab the yarn and pull it through again. And we only worked into the back loop. I forgot to say that, but yeah, only work into the back loop. So you go into the next back loop, grab the yarn once more, and pull it through both loops. So this is again exactly what we did for the ribbing of the sweater. We're going to continue working into the back loop all the way up the chain. Just continue going until you reach the top. So here I am almost at the top. I have a few stitches left. So then this is my last, not the last, before the last, and then this is going to be my last stitch. So we go into that last back loop, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn, and pull it through both loops. And now we're going to do what we always do. We're going to chain 1. So just grab the yarn and pull it through the loop. And then we're going to turn the work around. And we're going to start working down again. And we're of course only going to work into those back loops, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, grabbing the yarn, and pulling it through both loops. So I think you got this by now. As I mentioned, it is only 1 stitch for the entire sweater. Just continue doing this until you have 10 rows of that color. That is if you choose to use the same amount of rows for each color as I did. Just to give you an example, as I mentioned, I did 70 rows, and then I wanted 7 stripes on my front piece, so that's 70 divided by 7, so I'm going to do 10 rows of each color. But let's say you did 80 rows for your ribbing, and you want your stripes to be smaller, so you want 16 stripes. Then you just do 80 divided by 16, so that's 5, meaning you're going to do 5 rows of each color. So after every 5th row, you need to switch your color. But yeah, just do your own calculation, and I will see you back here at the first color switch. Okay, so it is time for the first color switch. I have a few stitches to go before I make the switch. Just laid out the colors in the order that I want to use them. So the next one for me is going to be the lightest purple one. Just zooming in a bit. So yeah, you just want to finish that 10th row going all the way to the bottom. And that is my last one. Then we're going to do the first slip stitch. So we're not going to do both of them, we're just going to do the first one, and then we're going to switch color, and then we're going to do the second slip stitch with the new color instead. So you cut off the color you are using. If you are switching your whole yarn, that being if you're just using one yarn instead of using the white yarn and then adding another thread, you're gonna have to cut the yarn itself, of course, and then add a new color. But we're keeping the white yarn, and then you're gonna kind of just lay it behind your hook. I'm a bit out of camera here, I'm sorry about that, and we're back in. So I'm just holding the purple yarn behind my hook, so I'm not tying it in, just holding it there. So you have two loose ends behind your hook, and then the purple thread is together with the white one. And then you do the last slip stitch with the purple yarn. And that is it. You know what to do next. You're gonna turn your work, and then you're gonna start working up the chain again. And you're gonna start by working into the third stitch from your hook, as always. But yeah, so the next thing we're gonna do is the neckline. And for me, since I have 70 rows, I decided to do 20 rows for the first shoulder, and then 30 rows for the neck, and then 20 again for the other shoulder. So that's 70 in total. So if you have a different sizing than me, I would suggest keeping the neckline 30 rows either way. So if you have 80 rows for your ribbing, then do 25 on each side, and then 30 for the neck. Yeah, finish those 10 rows of the purple one, and then for the next color switch we will meet back here again. Okay, so I've done 10 of the purples, and then I have already done the switch to the baby blue color, and I've gone almost all the way to the top. I'm on stitch 50. So it should be, there's 5 more, but we're gonna stop on number 50. So there is still 5 more stitches to go, but we're not gonna do them. So instead, we're just gonna chain 1, and then we're gonna turn the work and start working down again. So this is the beginning of the neckline, and you basically do the same thing. The only difference is that for the 10 rows of the baby blue, and then the 10 rows of the next color, and the 10 rows of the color after that, so 30 rows in total, the next 30 rows we're just gonna go 50 stitches up. So that's gonna make like a nice neckline for us. As I mentioned, you want to keep the neckline the width of 30 rows. So if you have a bigger sizing for your sweater, just add more on the shoulder parts. So yeah, as an example, if you have 80 rows in total, then you should have 25 rows before you start on the neckline, and then the neckline is for 30 rows, and then you do 35 rows on the other side. So yeah, just keep in mind that the neckline is 30 rows, but you can of course make it wider if you like that, or even tighter. Yeah, so I am now done with the 30 rows, which only goes 50 stitches up, and I've done the color switch again. So this is row, let's see, 51 we're at now. And since we want to go up again after the neckline, once you get to the top this time, you want to just chain 5 stitches. So that is the last one, and then we're just gonna chain 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're gonna do one more because we're not gonna work into that first one. So that's 6 in total. And then you turn your work, and then you're going to start working down that chain again, just doing single crochets going into the loop, and then grabbing the yarn and pulling it through both loops. So you're going to do that for 5 stitches. This is the second one, then third one, and fourth one. Oops. There we go. That's the fourth one, and then the fifth one. And now the next stitch is going to be into the back loop, because we're now working into what we already have in place. So going into just that back loop, and then grabbing down and pulling it through both loops. And I think you know the drill by now. You're just going to continue doing single crochets into the back loop all the way down. So this is the beginning of the 6th stripe. So we have one more after that. So do 10 more of this one, and then switch color and do 10 more of your last color. And that's going to be 70 in total. And yeah, of course, if you use a different sizing or have more stripes or more colors and so on, you're just gonna have to make your calculations on how many rows each color should be. Yeah, once you have finished that, the front is done, and we will continue on with the back. Okay, so we have the front piece all done. The next thing we're going to do is to create the back piece, and the back piece is going to be exactly the same as the front piece except for the neckline. Instead of going down for 30 rows, we're just going to keep it a straight line at the top, so that actually makes the back piece even easier to make than the front piece. And here you can see I have a back piece done as well. They should look exactly the same except for the neckline not being there for the back piece. So we're going to put those two on top of each other, and you want the two fronts to be against each other. So you have the back towards you and also the back down towards the table. And we're going to stitch those two together. Instead of using a needle to stitch them together, I like to just crochet them together. I think that's just as easy. So if you grab your 5mm crochet hook, just gonna zoom in a bit, and then you grab your white yarn, and then you want to find the first loop in that front piece and also the first loop or stitch in your back piece, and you insert the hook, and then you just pull the yarn through both of those loops. And then I like to secure it with a double knot, but you can of course just leave it loose if you think that's better as well. And then you insert your hook again into those same loops. You're gonna grab the yarn and pull it through those loops, and then you're gonna grab the yarn again and pull it through the loop on your hook. And you go into those next stitches in both the front piece and the back piece, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, and then grabbing the yarn and pulling it through both loops. So this is just single crocheting. I know some people like to use slip stitches for this as well, so you can do that if you think that's better, but I like the look that this gives. So yeah, just continue doing single crochets. Make sure to always get the front piece and the back piece. You don't want to leave any stitches available. And then you do the same on the other side. So once you are done with that, you will have something that looks like this, and this is the inside of the sweater. So if you just flip it around, this is how the seams are gonna look. The next thing we want to do now is to attach the arms, or start on the arms, and we're actually going to crochet the arms straight into the front and back piece instead of attaching them afterwards. So the first thing you need to do is to grab your stitch markers, and you're going to find that seam, the middle seam where we attach the shoulders, and then you're going to start counting, and you're going to count to 25. And then that is my 25th stitch, and then I attach the stitch marker to the 26th stitch. And then you do the same thing on the other side. You count to 25, and then you attach it to the 26th. So that means that the arms are going to be 50 stitches all together. You can of course make them wider if you like those really oversized arms. And you do the same on the other side as well. The next thing you do is that you grab your 7mm crochet hook, and then you grab your white yarn and also the color you want to use. I decided to go with the darkest purple because that's the one color that is just used in the middle of the sweater. So yeah, I wanted to use that, but you can of course use whatever color you feel like. Then you're gonna insert your hook into that 25th stitch, so not the one with the stitch marker, but the one before it. And you just grab the yarn and you pull it through, and again I like to secure it with a double knot, but you can of course just leave it loose if you like that. The next thing you're going to do is to insert your hook into that same stitch, and then you're going to grab the yarn, pull it through, and then grab the yarn once more and pull it through the loop. And now we're going to start working into those back loops again, just like we have before. So go into the back loop, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn again, and pull it through both loops. And you're going to continue doing this all the way across until you reach the other stitch marker, or the stitch before the stitch marker. Once you get there, you're going to chain one and then work back again. And you're going to do that for 10 rows before you switch the color. You can of course, if you have chosen to have smaller stripes, then do whatever amount of rows your stripes are. Yeah, I'm gonna do 10. So these are my 10 first rows. So the next thing I'm gonna do is to switch color, and I'm switching the color before I do the chain one. So I'm grabbing my next color, which is gonna be the blue one, and then cutting the purple one. And you just hold it behind your hook, and you also take that purple loose end and just hold it behind your hook as well. So you're gonna have 2 loose threads on your on the right side behind the hook. And then we're gonna chain one, and then we just turn the work around, and then you just continue going, working into the back loop. So I did 10 rows of each color, and I did a total of 60 rows for my arm. So that is 10 rows of 6 colors, or I only had 4 colors, but I used 2 other colors twice. So yeah, just continue on with your arm, do the color switches, and I will see you back here when you have made the length that you wish for your arm. I've now made the 60 rows that I wanted for my arms, 10 of each color. And the next thing we want to do is to start on the ribbing that is going to go around the wrist of your arm. So first off, just cut off that blue color. We only need the white yarn for this. And then we're going to take out the 7mm hook and we're going to switch it to the 5mm hook. And of course we want it to be a bit tighter around the wrist, so we need to do a bit of reduction here. We want to actually cut it in half, so we're going to take 2 and 2 stitches and make them into 1. So the first thing you need to do is to just chain 1. And we're not going to work into just the back loop, we're going to work into the stitch as you would if it was a single crochet. So you go into that first one, but then you also go into that second one. And then you grab the yarn and then you pull it through both of those stitches. And then you grab the yarn and pull it through the 2 loops. So those 2 stitches has now become just 1 stitch. Then you go into the next one and you go over and into the next one as well, and then you grab the yarn, pull it through both of those stitches, and then you grab the yarn and pull it through both of those loops on your hook. So we started out with 50 stitches for the arm, so we're now going to reduce it down to 25 stitches instead. So you just continue doing this all the way across until we get to the other side, working into 2 and 2 stitches at a time. And you can already see that it's starting to become a lot smaller, which is good. That is what we want. This is what it's going to look like when you have gone all the way across. So if you just take those 2 together, you can see that it is a lot tighter than it was if you try to put your hand through it. So now we're going to start on the actual ribbing. The first thing we're going to do is to just chain 10. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then one more, 10. That is the same length as I had for the ribbing at the bottom of the sweater. If you had more stitches there, then I would use more stitches here as well. So you're gonna go into that second loop from the hook, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn again and pull it through both loops. So this is, of course, what we have done so many times before. We're just gonna work down the whole chain doing single crochets. So just continue going into each stitch, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, grabbing the yarn and pulling it through both 2 loops. And we are getting closer there. Yep, just one more. So that's the last one. And then we need to sort of attach that to the work we have. So we're going to do the slip stitches again. So you go into not that one. sorry, yeah, I'm getting a bit tired here. You go into that first hole and then you do a slip stitch, and then you go into the next one and you do a slip stitch, just as we have done before. And then we turn the work around. And we want to go into the third stitch from the hook, because the first two are the slip stitches, and we want to go into the first one in the actual chain. So we go into that one, you grab the yarn, pull it through, then you grab the yarn again and you pull it through. And now, of course, we are only working into the back loops again. It's a bit difficult to see it on camera with this white yarn, but yeah, only working into the back loops. And you're just going to do that all the way to the top. When you get to the top, you're going to chain one, and then you're going to go down again. And yeah, just do that all the way across. And I will let you go on doing that, and we will meet back here. Meet back here, as if we're actually meeting back here. But yeah, just continue going on, and then I will see you back here when you are done with this part of the work. Okay, so we had the first arm all done. It is of course not stitched together yet, so it is still just a big piece of crochet. But yeah, that's the first arm. Do the exact same thing for the other arm. As you can see here, it should be tight around your wrist. And yeah, go on doing the other arm, and when that is done, we can go on with the neckline. So now we have both arms all done, and I think it's time to jump on to the neckline. Just gonna zoom in a bit. So you want to grab your white yarn and your 5mm crochet hook. And then you're gonna find a stitch. It doesn't really matter which one, just find a stitch. Put your hook inside and then just grab the yarn and pull it through. And as always, I like to secure it using a double knot. Take your hook and then insert it into that same stitch. Just trying to find the correct thread here. I suddenly had a lot of them. So yeah, just grab the yarn and then pull it through the loop, and then grab the yarn once more and pull it through the loop. So what we're gonna do now is to just single crochet around the whole neckline. So you go into that next stitch, and then you just grab the yarn and you pull it through. And into that next stitch, grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn and pull it through. Into the stitch, grab the yarn, oop, missed it, grab the yarn again, and then pull it through both loops. So yeah, you're just gonna do this around the entire neckline. If you feel like your neckline, it seems a bit big at this point, this is gonna make it a bit smaller just because we use a smaller crochet hook. I made a mistake. Just gonna redo that one. At the end here, I decided to go like under the loop that is like not the first stitch but the next one, just because I didn't want that big gap. And you just continue going around the neckline. around the whole neckline. Yeah. So once that is done, it's gonna look like this. And you can see that the neckline has become a bit smaller, as I mentioned, by going around the 5mm hook. The next thing we're going to do, you just want to attach your next stitch to the first stitch that you did. So we just go into that one and then you make a slip stitch. Then we want to make a chain, and we're going to chain 10 just like we did for the ribbing for the wrists. So that is 10. Then we're going to go down again, so we're going to go into that first stitch from the hook, just doing single crochets down the whole row. And you probably know this by now, done it a lot of times so far. This is the last time we're gonna make a ribbing though. So we are almost done. And we have a few more stitches to do. And then this is the last one. And as we have done before, we need to sort of attach it to the neckline. So we're gonna go into not that first stitch, but the second stitch. So it can be a bit hard to find. To put your hook into that one, then you grab the yarn and then you make a slip stitch. And as always, we're going to do 2 slip stitches. So just make one more into the next one. And it should look like this, and we're going to turn the work. And at this point there is quite a lot of fabric to turn around. But yeah, turn it around, and then we're going to find the third stitch from the hook, because the first 2 are of course the slip stitches, and we want to work into the first one of the chain. So we go into that one, just into the back loop, grab the yarn and pull it through. So yeah, just doing single crochets, working into the back loop, and once you get to the top, you chain 1, then you turn your work and you work your way down again. This is almost the last step, so if you can just get through this, then we're almost done. So just continue going around the whole neckline, and once that is done, I will show you how to stitch those 2 pieces together. We are at the top, so just chain 1 and then turn your work. Working down again into that first stitch. Okay, so we have the neckline all done, but as you can see, we need to stitch those 2 pieces together, and we want the seam to be on the inside so it's not visible in the front. And I find the easiest way to do this is to sort of just you hold it against you and then you grab the inside, and then you just make sure that those 2 lines are aligned. And we're going to crochet them together the same way that we have done earlier. And since the hook is already attached, we don't need to attach the yarn again. So you simply just find the first loop of the front piece, or the piece that is closest to you, and then you go into the first loop of the next one and you just pull it through, and then you grab the yarn and pull it through again. And then you find the next stitches for both of those pieces, and you grab the yarn and you pull it through, and then you grab the yarn again and pull it through both. So just do that all the way down, and then the neckline is completed. Okay, so that is the whole sweater done, including the neckline. I have turned it inside out because the last thing we need to do is, of course, to sew everything together, or crochet it together in this case. So you can start wherever you want, at wherever end, but I am going to start here down at the arm. And you take your 5mm crochet hook and you just insert it into that one first loop, and then you do the same on the other side. And you, of course, just grab your yarn and then you just pull it through. And you probably know how to do this by now, but I'm just showing it once more in case this is your first time. So you just make a double knot to secure the yarn, and then you take your crochet hook again and you insert it into those same loops. And you grab the yarn and you just pull it through, and then you grab the yarn again and you pull it through the loop. And then you find the next 2 stitches, and you grab the yarn again, you pull it through, and then you grab the yarn and you pull it through. And then you find the next stitches and do the same. So you just continue doing this all the way around on this side and on the other side. And when that is done, the sweater is actually completed. I have already taken a needle and just sewn all of those loose threads in, so remember to do that as well. You want all of them to be nice and secure. So yeah, just continue all the way around, and after that we are done. So here it is, the completed sweater. I hope you liked the tutorial. Remember to like and subscribe if you liked it. And this is my second tutorial, so give any feedback you want down in the comments. I would love to become even better